Yes. So today I've decided to respond to a video request from one of my subscribers, and I'm gonna do a video about Nico Hülkenberg and how his career went from what went so wrong in his career, given that he was held to be the next big star of Formula One, but I couldn't do this alone, so I've decided to bring back my brother Mike from F1 Fanatics. So thank you for agreeing to do this one with me, Mike.
No problem at all, mate. This should be a good chat because, Nico Hülkenberg does one of those careers that kind of got away. It's a really great topic, and it's really cool that a fan requested you to do a video, and more than happy to help out and have a good discussion about Nico today.
So yes, so without further ado, let's go and do this. So Nico Hülkenberg won everything under the sun in junior formulas, but then it sort of didn't quite work out in Formula One. So let's start off with Williams. What did you think about his time at Williams?
Obviously, he was a little bit mixed. I think he got a little bit unlucky. He didn't set the world alight, but the big standout from his time at Williams has to be that pole position in wet that he got at Brazil, and that really kind of announced the scene. But I think by that stage he'd already been announced that he was going to be replaced at Williams by Pastor Maldonado, who had won the GP2 championship that year. And I think it's probably a problem that sits with Nico Hülkenberg in terms of he's not had a significant backing or pay driver backing. So when Williams was struggling financially, Nico is the better talent than Pastor Maldonado, although Pastor clearly had pace. But Nico was the better talent, but they decided to go with a guy who could offer the team a more financial secure background.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. And from what I know, I mean, obviously from the German media only, I've got no connection to Nico whatsoever. But because don't forget, Nico was managed by Willy Weber, who also managed the Schumacher brothers, and I tend to remember he said that it was very, very last minute. I mean, it was literally after that race. It was literally after he put in that performance that there wasn't any chance of finding the top team, and that's why he ended up to be the test driver for Force India, because there wasn't actually any time left to actually get him in a race seat, and that is, for me, that is the only sort of very thing that I hold against Williams, is that they did that because had they not done that, or had they actually just given him a lot more time to actually look for other drives, I think his career could have ended up very differently.
Yeah, I can't remember at the time in terms of whether maybe all the outfits had been confirmed already by that time. Obviously, it would make sense if it had done. because I think he showed enough probably for someone else to, offer him an opportunity and give him a chance with that pole position. But yeah, it wasn't great from Williams doing it last minute, and it put him on the back burner. But Force India would obviously be where he spent the majority of his career. And, he raced for them in 2012 and 2013. And I think that's when he started to show good performances. The Force India obviously was an incredible car, but it was a good car. It was competitive in the midfield that he could at least show off his potential. And it was probably the next chapter in his career that, he was still this young, promising talent that, like you said, I think he's the only one. He won one of a few drivers who won GP2 in his maiden season, and I can't remember the record that he had. It might be the most podiums in it.
Yeah.
I can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, he certainly was very good.
I mean, he literally dominated every season, every series he raced in up to Formula One. Now he actually raced. He actually was in Force India for 11 and 12 because he went to Sauber as well, didn't he? He went to Sauber in 2013. But I think that was his biggest mistake ever.
Biggest mistake ever is a big call. I suppose Sauber were in and around that time, and it went dropped. And if he'd stayed with Force India, it probably would have been a better option. That has to be said. But yeah, I'm not sure if it's his biggest mistake ever. I guess Sauber have the Ferrari link at that time?
Yes.
I don't know. They did.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think he was just gunning for this Ferrari seat in 2014, which I suppose is a first big kind of major. Or actually, 2012 Brazil we should talk about. Obviously, that he talks about himself. That's probably a career-defining moment. Fighting for the lead with Lewis Hamilton. Turn one, having trouble getting around the back marker, collides with Hamilton. He's able to finish the race, isn't he? And means that Hamilton retires in his last race with McLaren. And it really is, that was the one that got away. Should he maybe kind of waited for a different point to go on the track? But I think that 2012 Brazil is a career-defining moment for Nico Hülkenberg.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I forgot that one actually. But from with Nico Hülkenberg, he's always been he's a quick driver. Don't get me wrong, and I'm not just saying that because he's German, but but he's always been the nearly man. Yet, I mean, I can't say that he's not talented, but he's always been at the wrong place at the wrong time, sort of thing. Because I mean, he clearly deserved that. He clearly deserved to win a few races, but he's not even done that in Formula One. So and I would argue that from a talent point of view, he is no worse than a Massa or Barrichello or any of them drivers. But I just think he's had mega bad luck.
There has to be an element of luck within Formula One in terms of how how you kind of get the opportunities, being, like you said, in the right place at the right time. And Nico always seemed to kind of be in the wrong place at the wrong time or miss the opportunity. I think the highlight case of that is at the back end of 2013. Obviously, Kimi Räikkönen was given the 2014 Ferrari seat to sit alongside Fernando Alonso, and Nico Hülkenberg was overlooked. And I think at the time, one of the main reasons for that, I'm sure there were other reasons as well, but Nico isn't blessed with quite a lot of F1 drivers are quite small and quite skinny, and because the driver weight was meant to be included in the car weight, and so Nico, being a taller guy and obviously naturally having a bigger frame, naturally weighs more, and it was harder for him to do that. And Kimi Räikkönen, a similar sort of size and build to Fernando Alonso, it was probably a lot easier in development wise to kind of be planning those cars going forward. So that he's unlucky on that stuff because his height, his weight is something. Well, the weight's not out of his control, but that's something that's out of his control. And I think a lot of people really go, that was Nico's chance to be given a top seat, and we would have seen what Nico Hülkenberg might have done within a top team. And that was the chance that got away through no real fault of his own, I think.
Yeah, I mean, would you say then that it wasn't? I mean, would you say the regulations stopped him? Like,
I would say that they probably look. So you've got your two options: of Nico Hülkenberg and Kimi Räikkönen. Kimi Räikkönen came third in 2012, and is it fifth in 2013? I'm not sure, but he finished in the top 10. And Kimi's been at Ferrari before. They know what they're going to get with Kimi. They know how Kimi's going to operate within the team at Ferrari. And like I said, combining all that and the fact that he was a similar sort of height build to Fernando Alonso, that's all in Kimi's favour. Nico Hülkenberg, it's an unknown. He'd done well in Force India in 2012. He did okay in. So where did he finish in 2013? Was it 10th or 11th?
Yeah, 11th, I think.
Okay, and so he hasn't done bad. But he's at the moment, he's this young, unproven talent, and to put him alongside Fernando Alonso, you've got to be a certain type of character to be able to go up against Fernando Alonso and be okay. It would turn out that Fernando would leave at the end of 2014, and that might have made their decision to go with Nico Hülkenberg maybe different in hindsight. But I think it wasn't purely performance based, but Hülkenberg was an unknown, and Ferrari decided to go with a safe option.
I mean, one other thing to say is that Ferrari, I think the first driver where they took a punt on, that is, well, not actually a punt, but compared to the drivers, I think I've read, like next year they're gonna have the youngest driver pairing ever for the last 53 years or something. So they've never actually had any. They've never really took a punt on any young drivers, if you know what I mean. And Nico was quite young, still very quite inexperienced, in it, and that might have counted against him.
No, absolutely, mate. I mean, it was only his second full season in Formula One, because he came part way through the season in 2010 for Williams, didn't he? And, like you said, Ferrari, the tried and tested method is usually go and get a big name or go and get an experienced name to drive for the car. And we go for proven talent. And like I said, Nico Hülkenberg was unproven talent. Kimi Räikkönen was proven talent. And, get two of You got to remember that in 2005, Kimi Raikkonen and Fernando Alonso were muted as the next top big talents, and Ferrari essentially had brought both of them together for the 2014 season, although it obviously didn't work out as they would have hoped.
Yeah, obviously. But moving forward now, so do you think he when he went to Renault, do you think? Because I personally think that I actually had quite big hopes for that partnership, but what were your thoughts on it?
I think we've probably got to quickly touch on, before we move on to Renault, is probably the 2014-16 seasons where he came up against Sergio Perez. And Sergio Perez, for me, we did a driver rivalries on the channel about it, and obviously Sergio beat him over those 2 seasons, and I think that is the difference. Sergio was able to find a way of securing podiums whenever there was a sniff of a chance of it, and Nico Hülkenberg wasn't, and I think that didn't necessarily damage his reputation, but maybe meant that top teams wouldn't look at him. But yeah, I think the Sergio Perez, him beating Nico Hülkenberg, then damaged his reputation of maybe being looked at by a top team.
Yeah, I mean, would you say that his success in the junior formulas, because he literally won in every junior series outside Formula One that he entered, but do you think he burned himself out before his time?
I don't think burned out's the right word. I think obviously you progress through the years, the cars you drive are very different, and driving a Formula One car is very different. And just because you haven't necessarily got the best performance out of a Formula One car, which, Nico got a very good, consistent performance out of the Formula One car, but he never got real top level performance out on a consistent basis for me. But you look at him, obviously we talk about this period between 2014 and 16. He won Le Mans in 2016, didn't he? So he's proven that in endurance racing and in other series that he has more than the capabilities to go on the top, although Le Mans is, you could argue that teams, if you're in the right team, it's a little bit easier than of old to win it.
Yeah, and because there are people out there that say that he only won it because of Timo Bernhard and who was the other one? There are people out there that say that he only won it because his other teammates did a lot of the work for him, a lot of the.
Well, that's the whole thing of Le Mans, though. It's a team effort in the driver's team, and now it's used to be 2-driver team. It's a 3 effort. So you can't say that, because you could easily say to the other drivers that they only won it because Nico Hülkenberg was there. It's a team effort. You can't just isolate it on that front. You could argue the team he was in was probably the reason. Who did he win it with? Was it during the time where Toyota were dominating, or was it Porsche? I can't remember.
Porsche.
It was Porsche.
He drove Porsche, and I'm not saying that clearly shows he's got talent. I tell you who he won it with. It wasn't Hartley, was it?
I was going to say I thought Brendan Hartley came into the picture in that, but I wasn't sure off the top of my head. I think 16-17 Hartley won it. He's a 2-time winner, but yes. But yeah, anyway, Nico won that and proved he can be successful in other series, can't he? But he just hasn't quite been able to find that step up. Not entirely on his own fault, but I'm sure we'll come on to stuff that is his fault.
But you know, I still sort of think that the Sauber move wasn't the greatest for his career.
Well, you go in hindsight, it's easy to say those sort of things, but you got to remember in 2012, the Sauber was a competitive car. Sergio Perez himself, I think, got on the podium three times during that year, 2012, and so you can't necessarily think that moving to, but yeah, in hindsight, it didn't work out to be a great move for him. And
I mean that's where we are, in it. We'll be at the wrong place, the wrong timeline. So but going on to Renault now, do you think I was shocked when they said he was going to be replaced by Ocon, I must say.
His time at Renault, he seemed like he was the big name. He was going to build Renault forward. They had this good relationship going forward, and then they brought in Ricciardo, then they brought in Ocon to replace him, and it just never quite worked out. And Renault, they're this big motorsport name. Well, yeah, they're a big motorsport name, but they're a big car brand, essentially, in the world, Renault.
Second best, isn't it?
Exactly, and they've got this. They should have had like a really big budget, although I think they were trying to be successful and do it on a budget, which is probably part of the problem why it didn't work out. But they were this big name, and again for the midfield, they've probably been the biggest underachievers. And in 2018, Hulkenberg finished best of the rest for them, helped Renault get to best of the rest in the Constructors' Championship, and for a year later for them to oust him, it's not the nicest move to go. But you could argue by that stage that Nico's had a 10-year career, and if he was really going to step up and be a big influence in the sport, he would have done it by then.
Yes, but one thing, I think he even admits it, and I think cerebral even said it. I think the crash in Germany, cerebral even said it. I think the crash in Germany in 2019, wasn't it? I mean, he was on course of the podium there. I think that was the final nail in the coffin. Like on his Formula One, on his Renault career. Again, as far as if I remember rightly.
I was just after the summer break, wasn't it? I think it might have been. It was before Singapore, because I remember Haas confirmed Grosjean before Singapore, which everyone was shocked at because everyone thought that Hulkenberg would go to Haas. Yeah. But that 2019 race in Germany was a big point for him, and probably the last straw. And you said it was the nail in the coffin at Renault, but it was probably the nail in the coffin on his F1 career. I don't know. He obviously still has aspirations of coming back, but I don't know if anyone will give him the shot, because you just compare. You got to compare guys who, when they had the machinery, and the Force India was clearly capable of getting on podiums. Sergio Perez got on a podium through there. You look at, I mean, the Lotus was a much better car in 2012 and 2013, but Romain Grosjean got on the podium during those periods. The Williams was better in 2014-15, so it's maybe harsh to compare him on those aspects, but he's had opportunities. Brazil 2012 is obviously a big one. Germany 2019 is a big one, an opportunity, and they might be his first and last podium opportunities, and they got away from him on both times. And I just think with Nico, he wasn't able to find that top level performance. He's a brilliant driver, incredibly talented, but he wasn't in the top band of drivers.
Incredible with the media as well.
Yeah, no, he was. He's a really great guy.
I mean, I don't know whether you know, but one of the people, apart from anybody from Sky or Martin Brundle, is actually Nico Hülkenberg that I want to try and get onto the unplanned F1 chat. I think that would be amazing, but anyway, that's just a dream of mine. But I actually put this thing. I actually think he missed an open. He priced himself out of Formula One because, from what I know, from what I understand, he had an offer on the table from Haas. So, and I think he just was asking for too much money. What's your thoughts on that?
I think there's probably a few complexities to that deal, and I've no doubt that Haas made him an offer because they were openly, publicly saying that it's between Grosjean and Hulkenberg. So to say that openly, they must have had something of an offer to Nico Hulkenberg. But yeah, I know he was a very expensive cost. Renault was spending quite a bit of money on Nico, and
for what though?
It's that is the argument of Nico Hülkenberg. I mean, 2019, he's unlucky. Drive to Survive opened a few more doors in terms of, with team orders and everything. He was a bit unlucky in 2019, but I always feel like the top drivers always rise to the top, and the ones below that can have a bit of unluckiness and something in between. And Nico had unlucky, maybe not to be given an opportunity at a real top team during the time, but he didn't. Yeah, he didn't grasp the opportunities, and maybe he was just trying to get a good paycheck before going on to other series. I don't know what Nico's motives were in this aspect, but Haas did seem a kind of strange one that it didn't work out for him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm putting this one to you. Yeah, if I was Nico Hülkenberg, yeah, I would say, if I want to stay in Formula One, which he claims is still his top goal, yeah, even now, he said recently, I think he said, well, during this pandemic, if they need me, I'm ready, type thing. But if I was Nico Hülkenberg, I would really look at, am I worth, or is it justifiable for me to earn X millions of pounds on the low millions of pounds when I've achieved my goal in Formula One, in terms of podiums or not, and then because you look at the likes of like Kvyat, who's had podiums, and he's racing for less than $500,000 a year, and if you compare that to Nico Hülkenberg, he's got like in the region of $4 million a year basic salary.
Well, I think with it that Nico Hülkenberg, I mean, it's not all about podiums. Obviously, we obsess about podiums because they're the ones where you see the drivers on. They're the big point scoring positions, and they're kind of the standout performances. That isn't the be all and end all. I think he has 501 career points. Nico Hülkenberg.
511 actually, I think.
511. Sorry, I've done him out of 10 points there. But he's an incredibly consistent performer in the midfield, and for any midfield team, he's probably looking at himself that he's a guy that offers consistency. He's got knowledge, so he's very good at setting up a F1 car. He's probably very good at he's proven he's very good in front of the media and the camera. He's good as a brand ambassador. Definitely. So he's probably looking at his own package and thinking, I am worth quite a lot. But for me, you've got to look at, he's got to compare himself to someone of a similar stature within it. And that is Sergio Perez. And Sergio Perez, with his sponsors, brings in 12 million to Racing Point, I believe, obviously soon to be Aston Martin. So, it's the problem with this pay driver, non-pay driver. Should we have drivers just there on talent? Should pay drivers be a thing? But F1's an expensive sport. It doesn't come cheap. And if you can get guys with similar sort of level of talent, but one's bringing you in £10 million and the other one's costing you, like you said, £3-4 million or whatever Nico was asking for, what the actual figures were. Who are you going to go for? You're going to go for the guy who's going to give you £10 million. It's a no-brainer, isn't it? And unfortunately, Nico hasn't been able to find a real kind of substantial sponsor to support him.
Yeah, I know for a fact, I know that he's still with Dick Krause, the German. The German sort of MOT car safety company, who incidentally were the title sponsor of Michael Schumacher for years before he ended up with Deutsche Vermögensberatung, which is a finance company. And I actually know somebody who used to work for Dick Krause, and they said, when they were sponsoring Michael Schumacher, they had to pay him millions of euros, and like now when they sponsored Nico Hülkenberg, that dramatically decreased, obviously. But all in all, Nico Hülkenberg has got talent, but never sort of managed to. He had opportunities, like you said, but he was always at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah, I think my view on Nico Hülkenberg is he maybe wasn't handed the best hand. He wasn't. Yeah. He maybe didn't have the best luck in the situation. But sometimes you've got to look at the opportunities that were handed to him, and some of those opportunities were incredible, and he wasn't able to take those opportunities. And when you're working in a fine margin sport of F1 at the very top of the game, those opportunities don't come around very often.
Yeah.
And it goes from that. And I wish for Nico, because I do think he's an incredibly talented driver. Just because you don't make it in F1 doesn't mean that you're not a good racing driver. I would love to see him go to give up on the F1 dream. You've given it a great shot for 10 years. Go and race in another series. Don't come back to F1 just to kind of be in the midfield and get a few more points. Go maybe into Formula E, go to IndyCar or whatever, go to something, go to endurance race, do a full season of WC. It's do something and win something in your career that you look back on and you go, I'm proud of what I've achieved in his career. He should be proud of his F1 career. It didn't quite work out how he would have hoped or would have planned, and especially didn't live up to the potential that his junior series held. But he certainly still has a lot to offer motorsport, I think.
That's exactly what I think. And as you said, I mean, there was a rumor. I don't know how viable that is. That he might be looking at DTM, but given the fact that DTM is in trouble at the minute, I don't know how viable that is. But thanks, Mike, for doing that with me. So
That's okay.
it was awesome. Yeah. So if you've enjoyed this, guys, do leave a like, a comment, and subscribe. And this one is especially for the person that has requested it. So I hope you enjoyed it. So cheers for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.